JFC. Today we will be taking a look at another JFC episode. Anyway, without further ado, let's analyze the combatants. Starting off with Albertosaurus.
Smaller than its close relative, the more famous Tyrannosaurus rex. Albertosaurus could reach up to 9 meters in length, stand about 11 feet tall at the hips, and weigh as much as 3 tons. 11 feet tall is too tall, and 3 tons is too big. It more likely weighed between 1.7 and 2.5 metric. It had a pair of short, powerful arms and walked on 2 muscular legs that ended in 3-toe clawed feet and allowed to move relatively quickly at a speed of 30 to 40 miles per hour. Is this 3 toes? I'm not sure. Also, this depiction is more accurate compared to the JFC one. The JFC one does not have feathers, which is plausible for a juvenile. For an adult, it's just 30 kilometers per hour at max with a walking speed of 8 to 13 miles per hour, aka 14 to 21 km. Its long taper tail helped it greatly with balance, and evidence shows that Albertosaurus lived in family packs, making it especially terrifying. Now, this is possible given that tyrannosaurs are usually more intelligent compared to other dinosaurs. However, another possible way they grew does is that their carcasses flowed down a river and ended up in a similar, sparring its sharp dagger-like teeth, each of which had a replacement growing underneath it. Albertosaurus would rush headlong as its 10th victim, grab it with its powerful jaws, and rip through its flesh. Its aim was to inflict an injury that would cause its victim to bleed. Like T-Rex, Albertosaurus was an apex predator at the top of the food chain's geographical range and time period. Its prey probably included herbivorous dinosaurs like the large but slow-moving ceratopsians, like Pachyrhinosaurus, and duck-billed dinosaurs like Montosaurus. Since the Pachyrhinosaurus did not have a horn, but instead it had a paw, the Albertosaurus would have a little bit of an easier time hunting Pachyrhinosaurus without getting itself killed. Oh wait, the Pachyrhinosaurus is... above its frill it has some horns, but not as dangerous as the ones that are from Trike or something. Also, an Albertosaurus would not even dare to try and hunt a Montosaurus. The Montosaurus is just too big. It will just simply crush the Albertosaurus under its own weight. Despite their heft and power, some Tyrannosaurus such as Albertosaurus had hollow bones like those of a raptor that reduced the weight of their frame and made them more mobile.
Anyway, let's move on to... oh, what the hell is that? Okay, so this is what JFC thinks that the Pachyrhinosaurus looks like. It has a nose horn instead of a ball like it should have. It's called Pachyrhinosaurus for a reason. Thick-nosed lizard. No wonder why Paleo calls it Depiction succatudinous, measuring up to 8 meters long, which is only for Pachyrhinosaurus canadensis, standing over 7 feet tall and weighing in as much as 4.4 tons, which is still too massive for Pachyrhinosaurus canadensis, around 3 to 3.6 tons, aka 3 to 4.0. Pachyrhinosaurus was one of the largest types of ceratopsid, or horned dinosaurs. Unlike other ceratopsids, however, the adult Pachyrhinosaurus didn't have a nose horn to go with the 2 horns of its bro. Instead, it has large, wrinkly bone mass covering its nose, earning it its name, which means thick-nosed lizard. Pachyrhinosaurus probably lived and traveled in herds for feeding and protection reasons. When one dinosaur spotted a predator, he could alert the rest of the herd. Its primary weapon was its armored skull, which is used for ramming its attack. When confronted with a predator, Pachyrhinosaurus would lower its head and charge forward, and raise its head up quickly in an attempt to wound its opponent. Now, judging by the Ionosaurus's nose horn being curved downwards to the point where it's not used for fighting back, a more likely scenario would be just Pachyrhinosaurus ramming the opponent. Another distinctive ceratopsid featured a bony headdress like frill at its neck, could be used as protection for the rest of the body, which was unarmored and vulnerable. Additionally, Pachyrhinosaurus were also fast for dinosaurs of their size, let alone a ceratopsian, capable of running at 20 miles. Now, judging by the Ankylosaurus' speed, Pachyrhinosaurus at 20 miles per hour is plausible. The giant Pachyrhinosaurus was herbivorous. It was preyed on by the giant carnivorous Tyrannosaurs that shared its geographical range and time period, most notably Albertosaurus and Gulgosaurus. Actually, Gulgosaurus and Pachyrhinosaurus did not even meet each other. Gulgosaurus lived 76.6 to 75.1 million years ago, while Pachyrhinosaurus lived 73.5 to 68.5 million years ago. I'm glad that the JFC wiki shows Pachyrhinosaurus errors. In the show, Pachyrhinosaurus is depicted with a nose horn which a real animal lacked. The show justifies this by stating that the horn is made of keratin, but no evidence of such a horn is present on the current fossils of Pachyrhinosaurus. Instead of a horn, Pachyrhinosaurus possessed massive, flattened bones, bosses on its nose and above the eyes. The show's depictions more closely resemble Centrosaurus, although there are still inaccuracies with that as well, as Centrosaurus was extinct by the time the period the episode is set. Pachyrhinosaurus appears in the final episode, Armageddon, despite the fact that Pachyrhinosaurus was already extinct by the end of the Maastrichtian, and as such was not present during the KBG extinction. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin.
70 million years ago, in what is now Canada, two Albertosaurus charged a herd of Pachyrhinosaurus, causing a stampede towards a flooding river. The Albertosaurus had a fast metabolism.
Gotta admit, this narrator is so cool. However, we're talking about JFC here, not Walking with Dinosaurs or Prehistoric Planet, whatever. This narrator is fitting for JFC because of its awesome bonus. Anyway, the scene shows two Albertosaurus separating. One goes for the straggler, other goes for the entire herd, which should have just charged in with their nose horns because it's JFC. There's nothing logical. Also, both of the Albertosaurus should have went for the straggler. That would have made an easier meal.
Like the birds of today, this forced it to feed frequently to replenish its energy.
At this point, I'm just going to ignore the fact that every dinosaur roars at the top of their lungs every 2 seconds. My main issue is that Albertosaurus just effortlessly flipped a Pachyrhinosaurus over like it's I don't know how something like an Albertosaurus could flip an almost 4-ton animal over like that.
Because of their lower center of gravity, dinosaurs like Pachyrhinosaurus would have been able to recover quickly from a fall. They have very powerful front and rear legs, and this makes getting back up if you fall a lot easier.
So apparently the Albertosaurus caught the American Lion Syndrome, where instead of going for the kill straight away, it just politely waits for the Pachyrhinosaurus to get up.
As quickly as it knocked them down, it's back up on its feet again.
The Pachyrhinosaurus had legs as thick as a grown man's waist.
Yeah, right here in JFC, I feel like this Pachyrhinosaurus's legs are thicker than a man's waist.
They were also relatively dense, like the legs of an elephant, not as hollow as those of the Albertosaurus.
The thin legs of Albertosaurus are its weak spot because it wouldn't take much force to crack or even break the leg.
So why didn't the other Albertosaurus come and help this Albertosaurus out at trying to hunt the Pachyrhinosaurus in the first place? Then again, it's Jurassic Fight Club, and every creature in this show is bound to make some dumb decisions that are going to get themselves killed.
But because they're relatively thin, they're a smaller target. The Pachyrhinosaurus misses the bone and only rips the skin, and this enrages the Albertosaurus, who then goes for broke.
The Cretaceous period was not as hot as the Jurassic.
Depends on what type of era of Jurassic, period. If you're talking about early to mid-Jurassic, then average Cretaceous day is around just as warm, a little less warmer than that. But if you're talking about late Jurassic, the cold of 146 million years ago, well then, you're just overgeneralizing. I can't answer the question without explicitly going into detail, and delaying this video for 4 minutes straight.
The temperatures were still hotter than today, but the relatively cooler climate allowed the dinosaurs to be more active. This was an advantage for the meat eaters, who expended more energy in a fight than the plant eaters.
But in turn, most herbivores grew stuff to defend themselves against those more active predators. Why do you have to war after you just won a fight? Jeez. Okay, I just said that I was going to ignore those dinosaurs roaring at the top of their lungs every 2 seconds, but not this case.
The Albertosaurus.
Pachyrhinosaurus herd, what are you doing? You have a nose hole created by the JFC themselves. Just charge at the Albertosaurus and just crush it under a stampede.
Also had a cavernous stomach. It could have eaten a cow in a single meal. Its endless appetite drove it to savage butchery.
Why does JFC have to treat every carnivore like they're bloodthirsty monsters who love fighting to the death? At this point, Albertosaurus should just give up. Like, there's 4 Pachyrhinosauruses threatening to charge at the Albertosaurus.
The Albertosaurus paces back and forth, pushing the herd into a tighter formation. From experience, it knows that if they're packed in too tight, then they'll lose their ability to move independently, and that's when he'll strike.
The brain of the Pachyrhinosaurus can only think of one thing at a time.
Stop backing away from the Albertosaurus and just charge at the Albertosaurus. Come on, bro. Don't get yourself killed.
They react. They do not plan. If they're focused on an attacker, they're not attuned to their environment.
Is this what the Albertosaurus has planned all along? To just push the Pachyrhinosauruses into a cliff? Not really. Make Pachyrhinosauruses back away into a cliff where they'll just fall one by one, crushing each other under their own weight, killing themselves.
One by one, the Pachyrhinosaurus are being pushed into the river.
No, they're just backing away from the Albertosaurus without charging at the Albertosaurus. They're just backing away so hard that they end up causing themselves to fall into a cliff and end up killing themselves. They did not get pushed, they just got backed away to a grave.
As the herd moves back. Normally, these dinosaurs would be able to swim without any trouble. But now they're in panic mode, and it's every dinosaur for himself. In their struggle to get away from the Albertosaurus, they begin to drown each other.
The Pachyrhinosaurus would swim like a dog, holding its head above water and paddling with its feet.
Okay, so they somehow got something right, which is the fact that every dinosaur could swim well.
This was impossible when they were too tightly packed together. The Albertosaurus was not a good swimmer.
Then they just get a wrong statement again. 2021 study, every dinosaur can swim well. Probably except for Ankies. I have no idea. But I'm willing to bet that the Ankies are also able to swim well.
Its small arms were useless in the water.
Those small arms didn't even matter for the Albertosaurus swimming. It just paddled its legs,
leaving it to rely on its 2 powerful legs.
Even though the Albertosaurus is capable of swimming, there is no way it's going to get into a flooded river.
Love how George Blazing contradicts the narrator with the actually correct statement. Good job, George. Not George, not found, please.
But the sight of the herd floating downstream is too much for him to ignore, so he heads off to follow the river and look for an opportunity to snatch one from the water.
So in the end, the Albertosaurus finds the Pachyrhinosaurus carcasses washed up in the river and begins to feast on. Anyway, Planet Dinosaur had a more likely scenario, but still not very like. A more likely scenario would be just flooding everywhere. Pachyrhinosaurus is dead. The Albertosaurus just goes in, eats them without even fighting them, and it just gets put in the flood as well. Dead. That's it. Let me know what scenario do you think happened to whatever Pachyrhinosaurus and Albertosaurus there are. But please don't be something like JFC. Thank you guys for watching.